All right, everybody, I'd like to introduce our next presentation here on the top tier track, hosted and moderated by Maj Soueidan from GeoInvesting.com. Next up, his guest is Cameron Watt from Intouch Insight. Gentlemen, take it away.
Bobby, Cameron, good to do this again.
Maj, nice to see you.
Intouch Insight trades on the, I own the stock. I bought the OTC one, INXSF, right? INXSF, and then it trades on INX.V in Canada. You're, I guess, a customer experience company. You have a service side of the business, which you got people on the ground doing mystery shopping. You also have a software side of the business, which is relatively new for you, but growing now. So we'll get into that. But why don't you give us a brief overview of what's going on with the company and what you do, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, maybe I'll just open it with a few slides, just level setting who we are and what we do, and then I like to leave lots of time for Maj to ask questions because I know he's got lots of questions. Usually his questions like everybody else's. I have to put this slide up. We'll wait for 5 minutes while everybody reads it, or I'll assume you've all taken a picture with your mind and we'll move on. Effectively, we're a data capture company at our heart. We collect data, information, right? We analyze it, we return it back to businesses with the goal of helping them improve their businesses, which is what ultimately makes us sticky with our clients. And we do that in a number of ways. We have a services side of the business where we send people physically into locations. So imagine if you're the owner of Wawa and you got all your convenience, you got your 1,000 convenience stores. We will send somebody in to every single store on a whatever frequency and checking on the execution against your own standards, right? So we're not checking to see what customers feel or what they think. We're checking to see if the individual franchisee, if the individual store is operating the way it's supposed to be operating. And that's kind of a big deal because you need to know that. Then we have the software side of the company, which we only started a few years ago. We started dabbling in 2014, 2015, the first year of revenue. It's fairly new for us. And we do customer satisfaction surveys in there. And that is where we do get the customer feedback and how they feel is through the customer survey product. And we also, so the customer service, how people feel and how they think about the service, that's covered through the software on the survey side. We also have an operational checklist product, Intouch Check, where you can then actually use automated forms and checklists to do your operational follow-ups and fixes and actually make things happen. We've essentially built a closed loop ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, if you think about it, if you're running a restaurant, a convenience store, a grocery store, anything, it's great if your customers tell you they don't like something. They'll tell you your bathrooms are dirty, right? Great. But you can't just go tell your people to clean the bathrooms because you don't know if your people are already cleaning the bathrooms unless you go check on the execution against your standards. So we marry all of that data. We're one of the only companies in North America that does marry all that data and do all that services ourselves. And we have that central portal, which is the analytics. And that is also our software that we own, and we sell that separately as well now. And we bring in third-party data into that. So somebody will pay us to not only collect data on our side, but let's say a customer complaint line, for example. I don't run a call center for customer complaints, but they could bring that data into our system so they can run their operations and their locations and their hierarchies through my portal, and they'll bring in third-party data. So we have all kinds of action going on, but it's really ultimately collecting data and putting it into the platform or the portal. And in terms of where we do it, I just mentioned some of the industries, but you have to think in terms of if you have a lot of something, then that's who we work with. So if you're our target customer isn't the Coca-Cola call center in Atlanta, because that's not our bread and butter. Will we sell them stuff? Sure. Are we their first go-to? Probably not. But when Coke wants something done or checked on in terms of marketing execution or some kind of or pricing execution or whatever across, let's say, every McDonald's, right? That's where we can help them. So we're about locations, we're about standardization, we're about execution, we're about improving, but across a very, very broad geography. So I got a couple other things, but I will turn it over to Maj to ask questions, and we'll go to slides if we need to.
Yeah, great, excellent. Thanks, Cameron. Let's take a look at your your valuation right now, because I'm curious to think what you think that investors don't understand about your company. What do you think they misunderstand, right? you're sitting here at 34 cents the U.S. listing. You got 25 million outstanding shares. EV to sales are like 50.51. You got cash and very little long-term debt, under $1 million. So just wondering, what do you think that you go over some of the growth you've gone through, and then we'll try and figure out why investors haven't recognized that growth.
Yeah, I mean, we have no long-term debt actually. We only have short-term. We have no long-term debt. We were profitable last year. We ran about 2.2 million in EBITDA on a $23.5 million revenue number. These are Canadian dollars. Just that's how we report in Canadian dollars. Our stock is trading at half times. People talk about multiples of revenue, and I'm like, that'd be great. I do fractions. So what do I think people don't get, to your question? I think the fact that we're bootstrapping a software company inside a services company is inherently confusing. If you take a look at the analytics, and everyone runs automated analytics now, and everybody has, everyone runs math, and computers do half it for us. If you take a look at a services company that's gone, from 8 million in 2014, let's say, to 23 million in 2023, even coming through the pandemic. Keep in mind, our industry's all closed their doors for a couple of years, right? We came through pretty well. That's because we're sticky, because we need what we sell. But you look at that, and then you're like, yeah, but their profits are flat, right? So what does analytics tell you? We're inefficient, right? That's the definition of inefficiency. There's no leverage on the revenue, because if the revenue triples and there's no more profits, that means we're inefficient, right? We have no leverage. However, during that same time period, we've built a software product, right? And I actually have a slide that I can put up for that here, right? Where we've got a software product which has been growing every single year, including through the pandemic when those customers had their doors closed, right? So that, if you go look at any software company out there that's selling a SaaS product, we now have well over 100,000 in MRR coming from brands that you've heard of, right? Anybody who's done that typically has raised tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to get there, between R&D and development and sales and marketing, right? They spend a fortune getting. We only have 25 million shares out. We haven't been out. We're not out diluting. We're not out raising money. We're bootstrapping a software business inside the cash flow from a services company, right? So I think that's inherently confusing to the market. I think if I was a private company right now and I brought out the logos I sell my software to with a growth situation, with the type of product, the sticky product, and said, hey, I'm going to IPO this thing as a standalone, software business, I would probably get more money than my company's currently trading at with a $23 million revenue figure, right? Or if we stop bootstrapping a company just through profits to the bottom line, I'd probably be worth more. So I think it's confusing having both inside one entity. But ultimately, when we achieve the goal and find the inflection point on the software to where that growth isn't just, moving up at 20-25% a year right now, just straight line up. When it starts to hit that inflection point and it starts to really tick up, right? Because then it'll be worth it. But I think it's confusing right now.
Yeah, I think that is key, getting that software going, revenue going, so it's a bigger part of the revenue, total revenue. That's going to be key for you, but you might be getting there. We'll see. But one thing in which you should talk about, there was an acquisition in the space recently, right? And we talk about that valuation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the big competitors, the gorillas on this customer survey side of life, is Qualtrics. So I'm sure you've all heard of. Qualtrics, Medallia are the two big company names most people have heard of. Qualtrics was I think they're bought very recently. I think it was $12.5 billion on a company that was doing like $1.4 billion in revenue and losing $1 billion in profits. Right.
This is now in this period of time where I didn't think we used to happen in this day, right, in 2022 and the debacle that happened.
That's their 2023 report, right? Yeah. So there's definitely value, and I can tell you that within the last 24 months, I have beat Qualtrics and Medallia at an RFP. And the key for my software was I beat them at an RFP where it was a customer who knew me, right? Because as you build your software business, you don't typically get to launch software and then the largest companies on the planet say, I'm going to pick you, right? I'm the procurement or operations person. I'm going to put my whole career on the line and I'm going to pick you for a piece of software that's integral to the operation of my company. It's just not how it works, right? But we have the services business where we're trusted by people. And so we become IBM. You know, the old saying is you don't get fired for picking IBM. Well, we become IBM at our services clients because they trust us. And so we're able to get some of those inroads to some of those logos. And then as you get those references and as you get success, now you can start to become trusted by people who aren't doing the services business with you. You can start having people come in and you can start to become a competitor even though you're not the billion-dollar company. And that's the path we've been on and we continue on. And at some point, you know, we're looking to hit that inflection point.
And to be clear, that you were the reason that's the software kind of division. You created the software platform, right? When you came on board here.
Yeah, when I took over as president and CEO in fall 2013, we were only a services company. So software has been, you know, it's been since then. It's been in my tenure. It's not that long. You know, this is a fair enterprise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, that's the report. The question was what the scale on the slides are, but those of you watching the WebEx might be able to see the slides better. If the scale is we reported 1.4 million last year. So the MRR, monthly recurring revenue, is well over 100,000 right now. Last year, yeah. 3.5, right. So the question is whether or not how we're viewing the software, how it fits into the overall strategy of the company, and how it fits into where the investment community should be getting excited, to paraphrase a little bit. The answer is that the software is one of the things that's exciting for me because I think it has huge potential. The size of the software market in customer experience management is significantly larger by a magnitude than the size of the market for services, even though it's software. And so to me, the market size is huge. The margins are obviously, you know, dramatically better because they're software margins versus services margins. So I do think it's an exciting place for sure. In terms of where I expect it to fit in from a strategy standpoint, we're not walking away from services. It's still the bread and butter, and it's a differentiator because, you know, if I can do the services and the software and roll it all into one analytics package and one set of results for you to help improve your business, that's something people can't do but me. You know, that is a huge differentiator in the marketplace. So we're going to continue to look at both. I would like to see the software catch up to the services. You know, I want the services to keep growing. You know, you've noticed we've done some acquisitions that you've mentioned ourselves, and those are typically in the services space where it's more accretive for us because the multiples are more in line with where we can buy them versus the services software companies. But one of the reasons that we do, in fact, bring those banners in is not just for their growth and their cash flow, but for the ability to sell software to those new logos, right, as a trusted partner. And so as we grow services, we expect it to continue to grow. It's not going to shrink. It's expecting to continue to grow. But at the same time, the software is hopefully going to start way outpacing that to the point where it starts to catch up. That's what I'd like to see. Question is whether the software business is acquired or homegrown. The software business is completely homegrown. It was built, you know, in 2014. We didn't have a product management team. We didn't have a development engineering team building software. We didn't have any structure or any past knowledge, frankly, of ever having developed or sold a software product ever in terms of that as a SaaS product. It wasn't something we'd done. So we have actually built the entire capability out over the last, what would that be now? If you started around 2015 in earnest, we dabbled in 2015. We redeveloped and really launched some better products in 2018 in the spring. So we've been 5 to 7 years really of getting into this game, and we're really happy with where we are considering how we've done it. But it's all in-house. All the developers, for example, are in Canada or the United States. We don't have any offshore. We're not third partying. It's all in-house teams and in-house resources that have built the entire software business. Our sales and marketing spend has trended. You know what? Anytime somebody, the question started with how our sales and marketing spending has been trending, and anytime anyone asks me over the last couple of years how anything is trending, my response is, don't ask me how things have been trending over the last couple of years, because the last couple of years are Mr. Toad's wild ride at the fair, and with backing out all the government issues and customer closures. I mean, it's been crazy, right? But if you kind of try to get rid of that weirdity of the last couple of years, our sales and marketing expenses have been increasing over time as we can afford to. As we grow and have the cash flow, we've been increasing those expenses over time. Is kind of how we've been doing it, which we'll continue to do as we can afford to. But we also don't want to just, like, we're not going to go compete on Google, AdWords to pay ridiculous amounts of money per click with a company spending $500 million in marketing there in the same space. We're doing guerrilla marketing, right? We're doing grassroots sales efforts, and we're doing things that make sense for us in terms of how we can leverage our skills.
Yes, I guess on that, Cameron, like in your current customer base right now, how much software opportunity is there for you?
I think there's still a lot. I mean, we don't sell, in my opinion, enough software to our current customer base. We haven't put enough of a focus on some of that cross and upsell opportunity. And the other part of the question, which I didn't answer, was what's the sales cycle on software? And it varies. Is a short answer. It's very sticky on the survey side, on the LEA CX survey side, where it's the customer satisfaction part. It's incredibly vital that it's done and done properly. So that sales cycle typically is longer. It's typically somewhere between 6 months and a year from discussion execution, because you have to not only kind of win the business and get the incumbent on, but you have to do the transition, and it has to be smooth and seamless, because no customer of that business can know it even changed. So that takes a little longer. On the forms and checklist automation side, it can be done in, we've seen them as quick as 30 days, and the sales cycles can be as long as 6 months or a year as well, because that's something where it might be greenfield, where currently they're not using an automated product, or swapping out those products is all internal. Customers don't see them. So it's really how quickly the organization can make their internal changes to swap software out. The question was, do we break our margins down by product line? The answer is no. I can tell you, though, that the margins are what you'd expect them to be for software versus services. Why don't we sell more? Why don't we sell more of it to our existing clients is the question, as well as how many salespeople and how are they compensated. The answers are time and focus, probably more than anything, around why we haven't sold more of it to our existing clients. It has been our big hunting ground. A lot of our big clients are from our existing client base, but we just haven't probably put enough time and focus on it, to be candid. And it's something that we're resolving. But we've had, especially, but the other truth is, for the last few years, it's been just tough. I mean, it's been tough to get even the clients' attention to look at anything different or newer, because they've been going through the same kind of environment we've been going through, and because they're these clients that I showed you, those are the doors that closed, or that if they didn't close, they had a line out, or they had to you couldn't see a smile through a mask anyways. So it's been a tough go since we've been doing this a little bit, but it's just, I think, time and focus will fix that part. The sales side of it, the salespeople, we have five people in the sales department right now, which for a company our size is pretty good. And we compensate them. How about I just say fairly? No, it's obviously everybody has a base, and then they're compensated on a percentage of revenues, and more in the first year, and then it trails off. If a salesperson's doing their job, it should be less than half. Now, there's varying degrees of performance and varying degrees of situations happen in different years in different markets. But the goal is that a salesperson should earn more in commissions than they do in salary.
So you've made some acquisitions. And so when I first came across your stock in 2019, I think you were just about to make an acquisition, or you did make an acquisition, and you had another one teed up. So how many acquisitions have you made since you've came on board, and what type of businesses have those been? They've all been services?
All been services. We've had a number of acquisitions since I came on. We bought a company in 2015 in the services business. We bought a company in 2017, which was a small one in the services business. We bought the two small businesses in 2019, right before the pandemic. Then we were ready to do another one, and of course we put it on hold, but we did manage to close that transition in the fall of 2021 when we did manage to follow up on it. So, doing periodic acquisitions where they make sense, where they fit into our business. We're not going to put a zebra on the horse farm, but where they make sense in the business, we can always continue to look at those.
And in terms of your diversity of customer, you have a pretty diverse customer base, but any new logos you want to talk about, and what other markets maybe you want to go into that you're not really heavily invested in right now in the company?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest market probably opportunities for us right now are financial services. We have a couple of decent logos, but I think we could be deeper there. I think that in the restaurant space, we are underrepresented. We have some great logos, but I think we're underrepresented. I think based on what my marketing department's told me, I'm allowed to say this, but for example, Burger King is a new customer of ours, where we'll be doing services for them. Is a pretty good logo. It's in the restaurant space, but I don't think we have enough in that, given how, if you think about restaurants, just drive down any street and you can look like on Main Street and you can look left and right and see anywhere from 5 to 7 chains that you've heard of when you drive down a Main Street in a city. When you start looking at regional chains and national chains, you still look at the scope and scale of the restaurant business. I think there's probably room for us to grow there dramatically, as well as grocery is another one where we probably are underrepresented.
Right. And one thing I want to get back to the sales and marketing kind of stuff we talked about earlier, and why the service business is so important. So we talked about before, when you get a service customer, right, or even your current customers that you have that you're only doing services for, sometimes you give them the software for free, right, in the beginning, some pieces of it, so they can start interacting with it, right, and that helps your kind of upsell eventually, right?
I'm going to agree and then disagree a little bit.
Okay.
So we don't give our software for free per se, because when we first started out, we looked at doing that, but we found it was very difficult then to create value and have it be perceived as valuable if you were giving it away. That was a way to get SaaS products out there at one point. We have found that we're better off by saying, no, we're a customer experience company. Yeah, this might be the software. You might not have used that before, but this is what we do for a living. We've been doing it. We've been around since we go back in history through acquisitions since 1978. Right, doing customer experience management is what we're really good at. So, and helping run operations is what we're really good at. So, no, this has value, period. However, where you're right is that anybody who buys a services product from us gets to see and touch and play with our software, because all of the reporting and analytics from the data from the services goes to the same platform, the same analytics engine, the same tooling that they're going to see if they buy a software product. And so if you buy services, you automatically get included the ability to come and see and play and touch and feel my software. You don't get to use the surveys. You don't get to use the checklists. You don't get to use some of the advanced analytics features unless you want to pay for them, even things like custom dashboards and things you can pay for. But you get access by being a services client to see the software, feel the software, and when you're in there, you can see what you don't have.
And on one last question, Cameron, on the labor issues, because you have obviously people on the ground, and that requires labor. How you see in that situation kind of loosen up a little bit in terms of availability and pricing? Yeah,
if you look over the last couple of years, labor has been a big battle cry around whether it's an issue or not, and it's been shortage of labor and it's been cost of labor. Those have been the two issues everyone's been talking about across most of these industries, and and including ourselves for the last few years since the pandemic. What we're seeing now is that the cost of labor hasn't been coming down dramatically. People aren't all of a sudden saying, I'm okay to go out now, and I'll go work for less. They're still wanting to either get money from the government and be at home, or get paid more to leave. That is still there, but the availability has gone up. So we are finding it easier to find people to do work now, even though the cost went up a little bit on us, which we had to adjust for in our efficiencies. But the cost went up, but we're able now today to get more availability, because I think there's more people, with all the layoffs that have happened and some of the, like Google laid off 10,000 people and that kind of stuff. I think there's more people now who are willing to do work, but the pricing, I think, is probably not coming back down.
Right. And lastly, I know you deal with a range of customers from small to large, and I think GeoInvesting is going to try using your survey software and checking it out.
All right, perfect. We'll look forward to having you as a customer.
It's a nice case study. Better work out. But thanks, Cameron. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.